Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all our attendees across the globe. My name is Silva Kachikyan, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to Women in Humanitarian Action, Leading Through Crisis. This is the final part of the series of the Armenian International Women's Association's participation in the United Nations 65th session of the Commission on the Status of Women 2021. Now, at the conclusion of this year's CSW session, the United Nations participating organizers emphasized a commitment toward women's full and effective participation and decision-making in public life, as well as the elimination of violence, achieving gender equality, and the empowerment of all women and girls. Now, this commitment is not new to AIWA. AIWA has a 30-year history of being a persistent advocate, speaking up for women in every setting, and especially in the United Nations forums. It has long recognized that with all the challenges toward achieving an equal and fair world, women are dynamic leaders of change. They galvanize the young groups to get involved, they become educated, claim their rights, strengthen their communities, and protect their planet. However, in the last year, the professional and personal challenges facing women have grown even more fierce due to a paralyzing global shift in world leaders, the COVID outbreak, and not to negate any of the problems across the globe, in Armenia, a war between Azerbaijan and Artsakh. Yet, in this year of historic events, there is a movement by women focus groups who are at the front lines of battles against COVID-19 and in war zones near borders. They are providing food, helping with shelter, supplying healthcare assistance, leading and teaching with innovation, driving and making positive impact through their organizations, all the while engaging youth to adapt to the greater needs of their larger communities. Now today, we have two guests who are part of that movement and who are defining the present and future of our world through their humanitarian outreach. Let me introduce you to the two guests. I'll start out with Hripsime, better known as Sime Amirkhanyan. She is the founder and board member of YES. YES is the Youth Empowerment and Sustainability, which is a non-profit in Armenia. Sime brings over 23 years of experience working with different international and local organizations. She is leading various projects in education, infrastructure, rehabilitation, child protection, let me get this right, youth, emergency relief, and the list is endless. So she is a consultant to other nonprofits and regularly conducts workshops in different platforms to ensure her skills and knowledge are shared among others to benefit the development of individuals and organizations. And next we have Mariam Avagyan, who's the director of Kooyrigs, Armenia. Now, Kooyrigs is no stranger to AIWA. We've had others of their founders and other directorial staff who have been present in some of our presentations. So as director of Kooyrigs, Armenia, Mariam oversees the humanitarian work for the organization. Here's an interesting story about Mariam. She was pursuing her PhD in electrical engineering and data science at Columbia University, but the war broke out in Artsakh, and she decided to put her studies on hold and move to Armenia to focus on humanitarian relief. And Mariam joined up as well with YES. She serves as their operations manager for the Youth Empowerment and Sustainability, where she oversees their educational projects. I believe she's also an adjunct professor of math at AIWA. We're working with the undergraduates. So welcome Sime and Mariam. And we also have Ani Karapetyan, who is one of AIWA's UN representatives. But in life, other than that, she is the director of programs at Build Your Life Resume, an online coaching company. Now, Ani has worked with the United Nations Development Programme's Social and Environmental Compliance Unit, Freedom House, the Peace Project Incorporated, and Children of Armenia. But for us, more importantly, she is one of AIWA's brilliant UN representatives, and she will be your moderator for today. Just a quick reminder, as Ani also mentioned to our listeners, we'd love you to type your questions and your comments as I see they're coming in. The comments are coming in the chat, or if you'd like to use the Q&A, you're welcome to do that too. We do want to hear from you, and our guests would love to respond. So welcome again, Mariam, Sime, and Ani. Ani, the virtual room is yours.
Thank you, Silva. That was an amazing introduction. Thank you so much for having us today. And I'm really thrilled to have Sime and Mariam today as well with us virtually. We're really excited to learn more about your experiences and your journey and your leadership in a time of crisis in Armenia during the pandemic and also after the pandemic, during the war. So we're really excited to learn from you today. But before we do address some of the aspects of your work, could you please tell us a little bit about Kooyrigs and Yes Armenia as organizations and how you ended up who you are today? So anyone, Sime, I'm not sure if you want to start, and then we can hear from Mariam as well.
Well, thank you, Ani. Thank you, Silva. Hello, Mariam. And thanks everyone for joining us today. This is a great chance for me to finally speak about Yes Armenia, Youth Empowerment and Sustainability, non-profit, because oftentimes we are super busy with the work and very often we forget to tell what we actually do. We just do the work, we report and then move on. But thank you once again for this brilliant opportunity. So back in 2015, I had this idea to start an organization which will bring together two of my passions, that is the education and youth. Because I believe in power of education, and I believe that the young people are the ones who are able to bring so much desired and so much needed changes in our communities, in our society. And I thought that bringing these two aspects together would really make a big impact. In addition, through my career, I was busy and working with many different organizations, and part of my work also was related to UN, and then I was also very much interested in UN SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, and that is why we have decided to focus all our educational projects on SDGs, also to be part of global movement. And we have prioritized for us 6 aspects, 6 goals out of 17. That is no poverty, education, equality, act green, clean water and sanitation, and certainly the partnership. And with all this, for the past 5 years, we have been doing purely development projects, mostly for young people, especially coming from rural areas. But the situation, as you know, has changed drastically after September 2020. And related to the projects, I think I'll give the floor to Mariam now to speak about Kooyrigs, then we'll go back and I'll tell more about the projects because I don't want to take all the time.
No, that was amazing. Thank you so much. And yes, we'd love to hear about Kooyrigs from Mariam as well.
Thank you so much, first of all, Silva and Anijan, for inviting me. It's an honor to be on the panel. And to continue from where Sime started, I would first like to talk about Yes Armenia, and then I'll go on to Kooyrigs because I am actually a Yes Armenia alumna. In 2015, I participated in a program by Yes, which completely changed my life. And ever since, I've stayed in touch with Sime, and we've been doing many different types of projects together, starting from a robotics project with MIT, and many other interesting things. Then when I joined Kooyrigs, we still continued our collaboration in a more formal way, and throughout the war, Kooyrigs and YES started collaborating even more intensely, given the need. So about Kooyrigs, Kooyrigs is a nonprofit today, both in America, I mean the United States and Armenia, and we started in 2018. Karin Ordekyan, our founder, started the page, which was this witty and funny Instagram page with feminist quotes and adorable merchandise. But it kept growing and growing because our founder basically saw the need for a community for Armenian women. We had many different organizations which were doing incredibly important work, such as giving shelter to survivors of domestic violence, or fighting in court for different types of cases. However, there was no organization that was bringing everyone together as a community. So that's what Kooyrigs started off as. Later on, starting with the blast in Beirut and followed by the war in Armenia and Artsakh, we stepped up and started doing things that we saw the need for. At the very beginning, we sent huge amounts of medication to the Stepanakert Hospital and Goris hospitals during the war. And we've done many other things, but at the moment our biggest project is Project Mairik, where we have over 200 beneficiaries who are all either pregnant women or ones who just gave birth. And all of them are from Artsakh. And we noticed that during the war, there was a lot of need for many different things, but nobody was really taking care of the pregnant people and the different and very niche needs that they had. So that's what we currently do. But to step back a little bit and zoom out, Kooyrigs, the purpose of Kooyrigs is to provide resources to the global Armenian community by different ways. So we launch community projects and do educational initiatives with the YES Armenia, and we amplify marginalized voices through our platform. I think that I would wrap up here, and I'll get a chance to share more later.
Thank you so much, and I think it's an amazing, intro to my next question. I was really interested in learning because YES Armenia and Kooyrigs have been very successful in rapidly changing their shift towards humanitarian work. So you have reacted very well to what was happening during the pandemic and after the war. During the war, and shifted your work towards humanitarian crisis response. So I was wondering, what was your reaction? What was your thought process, and how you handled that switch? Because you were doing some youth programs before that, and I was part of the youth mentorship program as well, but you had to switch really fast. So I'm really excited to learn what was the process like for you. Anyone can jump in.
I can start, I think, and Mariam will continue and add. As I have mentioned, that we have been doing development projects for young people, but the situation has drastically changed within a couple of days. And actually, Mariam and me, we met up and we sat together, we created the list, and I was like, Mariam, I have experience after first Artsakh war. I was very young back then, but I was already working for nonprofits, and I had already experience of working with refugees who back then were coming from Baku, Sumgait, and other places. And I was like, from what I have in my head, let's create a list of items people would immediately need. That was our first reaction. And second thing we have done together, we have decided to stop for a while, as long as how long the war will go, our educational projects, to slow them down and quickly shift into relief projects, because this is the aspect of life where there were people needed us. Of course, there were a number of other organizations, local and international, but we all know that all the organizations are going through their procedures, and it takes time. but people need help. And the war was escalating and the number of people was growing day by day. So we have decided during the so-called first phase of our relief to help equally everyone by providing food, medications and clothes. This was our first reaction. Then after it we decided to sort out the needs. If the people needed shelter, if sleeping bags, if something extra which wasn't in our list. But our immediate reaction was to start fundraising and to cover the needs of people, and also to direct all the resources that we had at that moment towards the relief. And we have started to simultaneously to fundraisings for the same goal. It was done intentionally to skip hacking because it was happening, and also because different audience does it differently, like people donate differently. And so many of our friends did the individual direct donations. So basically this was our first reaction. And for the details, I'll give the floor to Mariam.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Sime Can. So, as Sime mentioned, she had experience after the first Artsakh war in the nonprofit sector, and that day when we met, I remember we sat down and started just writing a list, and I was in shock because Sime was mentioning details that I would never even think about. For example, she said we might need like flashlights, basically for people in the bunkers, and it didn't even cross my mind that we would need such a thing. But then, why looking back into my childhood in the 90s, I realized yes, none of us had electricity, and obviously at the moment when Stepanakert was being bombed, and the entire area was being bombed, people could not rely on electricity or gas or internet. So Sime had so many good suggestions about what we should be sending, even though it usually wouldn't even appear in lists going around on Facebook and other social media that we were seeing. And as we all remember, during the war, the needs were changing on a daily basis, not even week, every day it was a different need. So we had to react fast and act fast, right? So we had to immediately buy something and send it. And at that point, we had already formed a network of drivers who could send things for us, of people who could receive and confirm receipt of the aid for us. But I do want to point out one thing. This is basically where early October. The war started on the 27th of September. And we all collectively as Armenians, as humanity, right, focused on fundraising, and we were still unclear about the war, and we knew that we had to donate to different organizations, and as a country we needed more weapons and all these things. But being on ground, we kept seeing refugees, and at the time we weren't even allowed to use the term refugee. And since early October, there was an influx, and nobody talked about this. It was not on the news. It was not on social media. It was kind of this silent, shameful fact that we had so many refugees. It was also a security issue. News outlets couldn't talk about it because it meant Artsakh is being emptied out, which is dangerous because then it's easier to invade. So all of this started early in October and continued until now. Of course, it shifted a little bit. As Sime mentioned, we put on hold our long-term projects like the new educational projects that we were doing. But as you know, Anija, we continued the mentorship program, which was amazing. But everything else kind of was on pause. We started with immediate relief. And now we're shifting slowly into more sustainable relief projects, be it education, vocational training, and others.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. And some of the information, well, I know you and Sime, and I know the organizations and your work, but some of the information is still shocking. And I got emotional as well, remembering my childhood and the flash lights and all that. So thank you so much for sharing. And you mentioned about phasing out the urgent humanitarian work. So what are some of the current needs that we have in Armenia, current humanitarian needs? And you also spoke about the wonderful Kooyrigs program. If you can give us a little bit more details on what it is and what other programs you have that address those needs, I think everyone on the call will be happy to hear. And also, before you jump in, I know I have so many questions, and I know our attendees will have questions as well. If you're just joining in, please feel free to add your questions in the chat. I'll do my best to monitor and then allocate some time at the end to ask some of the questions to Mariam and Sime, and say hi and introduce yourself and where you're from as well. But jump in. Sorry to kind of insert that part in the conversation.
Anijan, if I may add something before we move on and
of course,
reply to your question. So as Mariam said, we had to react very quickly and organize everything very quickly. Here, I would like to mention one thing we have done, and I don't think that many others or any others have done it. So we have decided that since our country is in war and it is an economic crisis that is expecting us and people will be going through, we have decided to purchase whatever we were distributing to the people, to refugees, either from our local farmers, local producers, or buy everything in small amounts from our local stores. This also has doubled our work because of course, it's much easier to go to a wholesale place, get everything cheaper and distribute. But we have decided that the donation that is coming to our organization should be so many people should benefit from it. Some economically, the others will receive relief. On the other side, for example, buying vegetables for refugees from local farmers was much, much cheaper. It was very hard for us to organize because, you know, like farmer is a farmer, he is just he's growing. But the benefit and also the satisfaction that everybody had, the farmers, us, and also the people who were getting like this things, vegetables and products which were grown with love. So we tried to do our best to impact whichever sphere aspect of life we were able during even this crisis. And I think this is what I wanted to say, but for the projects, for Mariam is the best person to share her thoughts.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that, Sime.
And I remember when Sime mentioned this, I was so surprised to find out that we have everything made in Armenia. But there's baby shoes, baby clothing, I don't know, adult winter boots, everything that I didn't know that is made in Armenia. So now we know all the made in Armenia stores in Yerevan, and they're amazing. I recommend people look it up and go because it's cheaper than some brand in a mall, and it's pretty fashionable. Of course, that was not our priority. The fashion wasn't our priority during the war, but it was a good perk to have, right? And maybe I can talk about the vegetables project first and then move on to Project Mighty because I believe it might bring up more questions. So again, this is still October, looking back, we at Kooyrigs and everybody, different organizations, were doing whatever is needed at that moment. So we ended up sending food to the front lines for soldiers for about a month, medication, all these different things. But around mid-October, Sime, me and Sime were talking, and she said that we really need something. We need to provide food for the refugees, and I was a bit confused because still we didn't have any numbering. Like we didn't know how many refugees there were, where were they located, and what were their needs, because none of this information was not only available. Nobody knew. The different villages and different municipalities all over Armenia were in mayhem. There's influx of people coming in. Where do we house them? Where do we feed them, etc.? But given Sime's experience, of course, I listened to her, right? And we started digging a little bit. We started digging and realized that there was a huge number of refugees already present. So already October 25, I believe, we started this large scale vegetable deliveries. So what we did is we started calling different municipalities and different maspetarans, right? And asking about the needs. They said, okay, we have some flour from this organization. We have some dry like pasta and canned food from here and here. What we really need is vegetables, so there's fresh produce. And that's what we did. So with Sime's great help, without Yes Armenia's support, we wouldn't be able to do this. But we, so Kooyrigs and Yes Armenia together delivered about 200 tons of fresh food all over Armenia. This is starting October, well into January, actually. So that's one project. And then the second one is Project Maidik that you asked about. Project Maidik again started during these vegetable deliveries. As we were doing these food deliveries and medication and other things, we were kind of acting like Agent 007, right? We were trying to survey the situation and see who are we working with and what is the situation. In different places, things were somewhat stable, say hotels in Zakhkadzor, there's many hotels there, where we're doing kind of okay because, you know, housing is nice, they had hot water. If we were going to, let's say, Ararat Mars, situation was quite terrible because people were staying in houses and many of them, to begin with, were not in good conditions. So during our visits, we kept seeing pregnant women and how desperate they were. They were displaced. They didn't have food or clothing, and normally that's that problem is solved by giving a person food and clothing. But if we are dealing with a pregnant person, they need to be to a close proximity to a hospital. They need to take vitamins. They need to check up and see when they stayed in a bunker for 20 days, are they okay? Maybe they're lacking in the different types of vitamins and supplements. So that's when we decided to start Project Maidik. And it entailed several things. It entailed appointment companionship, which meant that we would accompany women from wherever they're located. And most often than not, they were in remote villages and completely unable to go to a hospital because it was expensive to get to a hospital in a taxi. So that first was appointment companionship. So we would accompany them, we would provide transportation, we would find them a doctor, register them in a hospital to make sure they know where they're giving birth, etc. Number two was medication and vitamins. It was very sad as our list of Project Maidik beneficiaries was growing. We kept seeing that people would have a miscarriage. Many of our beneficiaries lost their husbands and homes. One of them even, actually not only one, there's many, but one case that I remember, her brother was missing, her husband was murdered, she lost a home, and she was having difficulties with pregnancy. So what we most commonly, we bought this medication called Dufaston. Of course, it was prescribed by doctors, and Dufaston was that one medication that made sure that miscarriage was prevented. And many of our beneficiaries are basically taking Dufaston to make sure they don't have a miscarriage, given all the stress and the displacement. There's other things in Project Maidik, like we give them a box that's sufficient for 1 month for both baby and the mother. We also noticed that a lot of the aid going around was usually for the baby. So the diapers and diaper cream and baby powder and baby oil, right? But there was not a lot of aid for the mother. So that's also what we, that was a need that we also filled. Yes, but I can talk about this for hours, so maybe I'll give the floor back to Ani.
You know, it's amazing. And as you speak, I understand how much work it is. And starting from what Sime said about choosing the effective path of trying to invest in the local market as well. But it's not the easiest path. It's effective, it's impactful, but it's not the easiest. And as you speak about how you investigate and what factors you need to consider and how you decide whom to support and what to support with. It's a lot of work involved. And I can imagine, having also grown up in Armenia and having lived there since I was 25, a lot of barriers that I can imagine those already. And since we're and Kooyrigs is an organization focused on women, and Yes Armenia works with you, and I'm sure you also focus on women a lot as well. And since AIWA is also an organization that elevates women, I was wondering if you can speak a little bit about the barriers and challenges you face as women leaders in this field, and how are you trying to navigate those and overcome those challenges?
Anijan, to begin with, instead of challenges, I'd like to say that this war was probably is the worst thing that has happened to us. But at the same time, it helped me once again to discover the immense power and kindness and care that our people have, like that potential that our people have, especially the women. I can state confidently that I have never met in my life this many powerful women, and I was calling, like, I have met the best sisters and mothers during this war. I mean, the work they were doing, it's amazing. The sacrifice they were showing is like, I have no words. And I was shocked. I have never worked this productively and this effectively with so many people I have never met in my life. Since September, there are women, there are people we have been partnering, and we are in April already. I have never met them, but we are in contact. We're always chatting like old friends. We're helping, and I know they're always ready to help, and we were always ready to help. The projects we have mentioned are very big things that we have done, like very visible. But along with that, we have done so many small things, like sending power batteries to the front line. I can't even recollect everything. And mostly, like, unfortunately, this is like through history, everything is on women's shoulders during the war. So women were doing everything from organizing to caring. And as for the challenges, for me, the hardest challenge was when there are like 100, literally 120 families with similar needs, but I don't have enough resources and I have to choose. This is one thing, like she has 5 kids, but then the other's husband is missing, but then the other is divorced. And then I was like, we're in trouble. But of course, every challenge, like we were able to overcome with the help of our friends, our other organizations. And I have also to mention that the unity that all the non-profit sector and individuals showed during this period of war was also like something very, very exceptional, which unfortunately we don't have right now, but it did exist a month ago. And thanks to this unity, we were able also to solve many issues. But for me personally, choosing whom to prioritize, whose needs are should be prioritized, is probably one of the difficult things. I'll remember more challenges, I'm sure. That's why I'll give the floor to Mariam to continue.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Maybe I'll talk about challenges in a different way, like the little ones that I noticed on the way while we were working. So the first one was bargaining for prices. Sometimes if I really needed to bargain for something, to buy in large quantities to send to the front line or to hospital or any other place, I often asked, my male friends to do it, because if I was on the phone with my voice, people probably wouldn't give me the prices I wanted. But you know, during the war, everybody was very willing to drop the prices because we were all working for the same purpose. But this was something little that kind of stuck in my mind. Another thing that I noticed, this was probably one of the very, very unique occasions where sexism worked for us, not against us as women. When we were driving to Artsakh or Goris, we had to go through 5 checkpoints. There were checkpoints all the way. So, you know, there's the highways, but in order to go to Goris, you have to pass through basically 5 checkpoints where everywhere they stop you, they open the car, inspect the car, ask for passports. Who are you? Do you have a stamped paper from somewhere stating where you're going? Why are you going? Is there a list of things that you have in the car, etc.? So this was the norm. However, because we were not men, they were just like, oh, hello, you can go ahead, that's fine, you're fine. So sometimes we saved some little, maybe 10 minutes of time, and we didn't have troubles going through the checkpoints. But it just reminded me how polarized the society is when it comes to gender, even during the war and after the war. There were many other challenges too, but I would like to second Sime's point of unity. I basically met my closest people during the war in terms of work and personally, because, you know, we've never met, but we did so much work together because there was a need. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Sia, we always have some assumptions, but it's so interesting to hear the perspective you have, and I've never thought about the unity part of it. I was focusing on what challenges there could be. So thank you for that perspective. I definitely didn't think of that. And speaking of challenges, despite all of them, I mean, everyone knows you've achieved tremendous success. So maybe we can shift the conversation to what leadership style do you think you have that helped you achieve all that success? And you're both in leadership positions. I know you wear many hats, but you lead the projects, you generate the idea and execute as well. So what do you think your leadership styles are that make Kooyrigs and Yes Armenia and the project so successful?
Mariam, I can start. It's really, in times of crisis, it's really very hard to define what management style we use. For me, my first reaction was quick and effective. I can honestly say I don't know under which management style it goes, but I asked my team to be super responsible, to be very caring, because we're working with people who have gone through so many different things, and we never know in which mental or physical state these people are. So just be caring, be attentive, be responsible, and quick. If there is an issue, call, don't wait, react. I mean, if you cannot solve this, tell me. If I cannot solve this, I'll ask a friend. And just being very organized, it required a lot of energy and input, mental, physical, psychological. I don't want to sound dramatic, but literally they were days when I was like, if there is another one day like this, I cannot survive. Because emotionally, if you are working with people who have lost their family members, who have lost their homes, who have lost literally everything they had, and now we are in the position to comfort them. And I remember I have visited a family, I think we were with Mariam, we have visited a family, we were providing them winter boots. There were 5 girls in the family, and the father was like, you don't know me, this is such a shame for me to not to be able to afford winter boots for my girls, because I was the person providing everything to others. And then I had no other things as to react, and I said, you know what? There is nothing to be ashamed of. When I was 13, someone else gave me winter boots after the earthquake. And I think this type of conversation, when helped me and helped them to realize that we're same, we're helping each other, no shame, nothing. It is just a very hard situation. We all have to help each other to go through. So academically, I cannot define that management style, but being very pro-human and pro, like listening to people and trying to put yourself in their position helps a lot. That is at least what I have been doing, and I have asked my teammates to do it, even the volunteers. I'm like, these people are in very hard, in going through very hard conditions and state. So just understand. This is from me. I'm sorry.
And I can, yeah, I remember that family that Sime mentioned. We were there together. It was so sad. The father was basically many families we visited. Usually, the father of the family was just sitting in the corner, like not even interacting, completely depressed, not saying many things. But the women and like the wife and the daughters usually, or even the grandmothers, they were the ones speaking a lot. So even in that sense, we realized that women were more open to sharing and maybe letting out some of the emotions they were having, which then allowed us to help them accordingly. But as to the leadership style, I learned from Sime a lot during the war, and even since 2015 I've been learning from Sime. But I realized that even, and for my team in Kooyrigs, we were doing so much work from like 8 in the morning until 3 a.m. At night, and then again and again and again without weekends. Weekends were not a concept. If there is a need, we have to work. And of course, this was very mentally draining for the team. So I was always available for a call. I was always not just saying, you reach out if you need me, or do you want to talk about it? Actively talking to them every day and making sure that they're okay. Of course, during our visits, we were seeing very sad situations. So sometimes I would say, please go take a nap for 3 hours. And they would do that because they needed one. But also being able to manage many things at the same time. For example, we talk about emotional intelligence, and there's many posts on Instagram how it's very tough for Armenian men to admit things because they are men, and there's this big culturally created ego that they have to stick to. They can't ask for help, and they can't talk to their wife about why they're sad. They cannot cry. All these different things are extremely damaging to us right now. So as women leaders, we did not have that ego on the way, and we couldn't afford to have one because it was never about us. Of course, it was hard to do the work and meet families who are in devastated conditions, but this was something that we were there to do, but we should not have existed as people in a way that we should give the floor to people in need. That meaning we have to talk to the team, we have to talk to the beneficiaries, and all in all, utilize our leadership skills and make decisions on the spot, while also being understanding and compassionate towards everybody involved. Yes.
Yeah, thank you. I'm always in awe to talk to you both, because and I really wanted to ask the leadership question, because during the war, you desperately looked to someone to follow, and because you're also, especially diaspora Armenians who are removed from the situation and are far away physically, so I was looked up to you because you were on the ground, literally reacting very quickly and very effectively. So I really wanted to kind of pick your brain on how you did that, and it was really amazing to listen to the insights you shared. And I know we have 10 minutes. I have a final question and last call for the attendees to put the questions in the chat, and I'll find the time to ask if you have any. But I think my final question is, speaking about diaspora and us being far away and sometimes not connected to the needs, as far, you know, we try a lot, and we all have connections and relatives and family back in Armenia, but sometimes there is still that distance and gap between the needs and what we are doing. So for those Armenians and people who are on the call who want to help out, besides, you know, being involved in the US and lobbying and advocating, besides sending the money and volunteering, what other avenues do you see that diaspora Armenians and other people globally can help out with the humanitarian crisis or anything else when it comes to Armenia?
Anijan, I can start. Recently I was thinking a lot about, like, okay, we have helped this many people, we have covered all their like emergency needs, but what then? What's coming next? We cannot do it endlessly, because like life should, there should be development. So, and before that, I'd like to mention that currently, yes, Armenia is implementing a Protect Artsakh project, in the frames of which we are providing support to 32 families from displaced from Artsakh, but currently living in Lori region, mostly in Vanadzor. When we were assessing their needs, of course, every single family mentioned food first, then clothes. But then I said, okay, I know that you have received food and clothes from ABC, other organizations. What can we do for you that will be different and very, very helpful? And many of them couldn't reply on the spot. They asked for time. People kept calling us back and asking for either hairdressing classes or makeup classes, English lessons. There is a young boy who asks, he says he doesn't need any funding or money. He wants to know someone to be able to speak English and to improve his vocabulary. So I have mentioned this as an example because I wanted to show that if we push people outside of their comfort, it's very easy to receive food to consume, and it can go on and on for years. But at some point, first, people are tired of donating. Second, every single donor, me as a donor too, I want my money, my investment to be for the future. And of course, food is emergency, but that's cannot last forever. So when we push people, when we give them a little hint, when we show them that for the same, using the same resources, let's say as an example, $100 for 1 month, you can invest in your education, in your future profession, in something that will make you happy, sustainable, and proud. So my answer will be, if anyone in diaspora, close or far, is willing to help people here, we can match them, like conversation, consultation, sharing knowledge, improving English. We have a brilliant example of WHOIS career mentorship program, where from actually we know you, Anijan, and you know that there wasn't any financial thing involved in the project. You were just talking with the young people, improving their knowledge, opening their eyes, showing them completely different world. This is what I am now working with these 32 families from Artsakh, and I'm hoping in 6 months we will have like new hairdresser, new makeup specialist. There is a lady who wants to learn baking. Who else? The boy who wants to go to UWC, and we're helping him, and so many others. I'm gonna push more. I'm not stopping because I want these people. Okay, very bad thing happened, but we have to find this inner power to overcome, especially if there are people at this point willing to help us. So this is from me.
Of course, sustainability is so important, but I'll let Mariam jump in as well.
That's why I love Yes Armenia. It has sustainability in the name, so everything is sustainable. I completely agree with Sime, and I was actually going to kind of repeat the point. During the war, I was asking, literally messaging my friends individually and saying, hey, I know you are stressed and you're drained from all the fake news going around, from all the fundraisers we're seeing, not knowing what the future entails. Even one day, 3 of my friends completely independently, one from Canada, one from Australia, and one from the US, completely independently messaged me, completely panicking, saying, hey, have we handed over Sunik? And I was like, what? I don't know, Ani's nodding. You probably remember that day when all this fake news was going around. And I felt for these people. I was so heartbroken that they had to wake up and think that we have handed over Sunik or anything like that could ever happen. That's such a stressful thing to go through, on top of waking up, checking news every day, and all this mayhem that was happening. So I started messaging my friends and saying, guys, I need you to do one thing. I need you to be on the news less and talk to people more. So most of us have friends in Armenia, or friends of friends who are located in Armenia at the moment. So I asked them, once a day, message them. That's it. Just message them, say, hey, how are you doing? What's new? They will be so happy because this one message will give them hope that people from abroad actually care. Of course we know they care. Of course we know, given the donations, given the advocating, the protests, everything. But that one-on-one connection would be very healing for the diasporans and for people who were located or who are located in Armenia right now. And that's it. With that one personal connection, the diasporans would feel so much more relief, because I was a diasporan myself and I remember the 2016 war. That way we will avoid the fake news, the stress, but also it gives us a little bit of hope and a little bit of, I don't know, the homesickness goes away a little bit, because you're speaking with someone who can send you a picture of the view from their balcony and you see Ararler or Aragats, and you just feel better. That's one. And another thing is the Who's Career Mentorship Program, which was an excellent example of this. No cost, just once a week, we had mentors and mentees meeting for 1 hour, and that's it. And many of the feedback that we got, which we will, by the way, post soon, was that for both mentors and mentees, this experience completely changed how they experienced the war. Basically, we had Yeva, our mentee, is in Sunik, so if anything happened, the mentor messaged her saying, do we have Sunik? And Yeva was like, yes, I'm here, we have Sunik, I live here. So that immediately solved any problem that had come up.
Thank you so much. And I know Silva will like to say a couple of words as well, but first of all, oh, by the way, I also was part of the mentorship program. It was healing for me. It was equally supporting the young person, but also getting as much support back. So absolutely agree. That was a very sustainable model of giving back. That being said, thank you so very much for joining us today. I'm always at awe of your work and how you're doing it. And I look up to you, and you're both amazing. And I'm always amazed at the power and dedication to uplift Armenians and Armenian women. So thank you so much for joining, and for sharing the insights. And I'll let Silva also say a couple of words as well.
Well, thank you. This has been an incredible hour. Sime and Mariam, I mean, there's so much passion, sensitivity toward humanity, and hearing how women founded organizations like Yes and Kooyrigs are responding to the call to action to make a difference, to become catalysts of change through radical inclusion of local resources and purposefully engaging youth is spellbinding. It is encouraging, it is inspiring. Any effort to achieve gender equity, to eliminate poverty, increase opportunities for growth, or for sustainable development, or even for humanitarian outreach, relies on the unspoken, unsung heroes of the women volunteers and meaningful engagement of youth in the policies and programs that impact our lives and communities. It is marvelous that women are playing such decisive roles in building and rebuilding communities, sharing our wealth of knowledge and experience for a better, stronger, more productive, greener, thriving generation. It is essential to any nation and to Armenia. Sime and Mariam, once again, thank you for sharing with us and our listeners the strategy and insight into your empathetic, successful campaign during and after the recent war. Devastated all of us, but it is people like you and organizations like yours that have brought some positive impact into the country again. And your projects that engage and strengthen the youth define the present and the future of our world. It is again wonderful to see young women leading today because they are creating the reality of tomorrow. And that's what you're doing. Thank you again. And thank you to our UN rep, Ani Karapetyan. Ani is one of 5 AIWA UN representatives who is also active with the UN NGO Youth Leader and Young Professionals Group. Her presence and participation at the UN representing AIWA is chaired by our own AIWA board member, Veronica Moroyan. At AIWA, I just want to say 1 or 2 words about AIWA again, that at AIWA we elevate the voices and encourage the works of young advocates, of women-focused and women-founded organizations, because that is who we are, based upon the principles that we were founded on. We continue to work to shape the priorities to move the needle to a more balanced and healthier, productive and peaceful world. And to all our listeners across the globe, thank you for joining us. We appreciate that you devoted part of your weekends to AIWA and the United Nations programs that we held. Your presence inspires us to learn more, to become more, and why not to lead more. So please look out for our future AIWA events. And a quick word about our next scheduled webinar will be a candid conversation with New York Times award-winning author Nadia Owusu. You do not want to miss this one. And for replays of our previous programs and for this program, please visit our website. And if you're not yet a member of AIWA, we encourage you to join us by going onto our website, aiwainternational.org, and join the global network of women who are sharing our values. And as always, I repeat the values: integrity, respect, inclusivity, service, and relevance. Stay well, stay safe, stay informed, stay relevant. Until next time, my gratitude to all of you and to the power of women.
Thank you to you as well, Silva. Thank you so much for hosting us today.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.